Hi there, and welcome back. Today's lecture is kind of short. It's called the Two Hemispheres, and it's just a quick review of what each side of the brain does. Now that we've seen how it's built and what the various parts do, how do the two sides of the cortex operate? Here's a picture of the two sides of the brain, and the left side you can see looks very formal, very geometric, people doing exactly what they think they need to be doing or what they're told to be doing. And then we have the other side, which is a little more, I'll say, on the wild side, a little more free, a lot more free. It's about creativity, Mother Nature, beauty, all that kind of processing, holistic processing. So let's go a little deeper here. So here we have, let's move this over here. Okay, so here we have the left hemisphere. You can see that there's like a dividing line right down the middle of the cortex. It's not really two separate pieces, it's all one piece. And if you were to take that cortex out of the brain and shake it out like you were shaking a rug, what you'd find is that the cortex is about the size and thickness of a pillowcase. And that's why it's all wrinkled up, because they're trying to get that whole thing in there. But the left side began to specialize in linear thinking some thousands of years ago. I'm not so sure that that's an accurate kind of estimate, but it does line up with some other factors that have to do with people messing with our DNA. And so what we have developed is this extraordinary kind of linear lockstep thinking, which is it has some uses, okay, for the kind of world that we're creating. The question is that the kind of world we want to create? So let's look at this left hemisphere. It's called the sign mind. And it specializes in one thing at a time processing, one thing at a time. It's very sequential. A to B to C to D, and it produces linear thinking. That I have issues with, but we're just going to let sleeping dogs lie for the moment. The left hemisphere looks at details. It's all about details. The wart on the face, instead of looking at the whole face, instead of paying attention to the whole person, people get caught up with some little silly detail, a hair out of place, some other thing, the wart on the cheek, whatever. So the left hemisphere is a splitter. And distinction is very, very important to that left hemisphere. What it does is isolate and examine. And you can learn a lot that way, but if you don't go back to integrate into the whole system, that's a problem. Okay, so the left side is a splitter. It splits the world into identifiable, nameable bits and pieces. Identifiable, nameable bits and pieces. And once you've given all these bits and pieces an individual name, it's a little more challenging to integrate it back into a wholeness again. So the left side focuses on verifiable aspects. It wants proof. 2 times 2 equals 4. You get 2 cookies and add 2 more, you've got 4. There's no argument about that. There's your proof. It loves logic, loves it. It sees cause and effect. This is a system this is the side of the brain that really likes blame in many ways. You're the cause of that. It's your fault. We can assign a cause, but we don't have to assign blame. And cause is not really understood the way that it needs to be understood. We actually don't deal with that until Intuition 6. But cause and effect, which is very much karma related. Karma is just cause and effect. You do something, here's the effect. You're supposed to assess it and see, do you like that effect? If not, you redo it. But we don't do that. We go, oh, woe is me. So logic sees cause and effect. The left side loves charts, facts, informational aspects of thought. It doesn't really care about the meaning. It just wants the data. Well, that's only half of reality. So the left side, even though we need some facts, and it's very useful to put those in a chart and be able to see what we're actually looking at, and it kind of lays out relationships. We really need to assess the meaning of things. So, but the left side doesn't do that. Okay? Charts, facts, informational aspects of thought, not meaning. The left side has the power of syntax. Okay, so that means it's able to string words together grammatically to create meaning. Hardly anybody pays attention to syntax, but it's really a key thing in language, especially if you're a writer like myself. You're going to notice, people's use of language in ways that is questionable, we'll say. Okay, so it has the power of syntax. It takes the face meaning of the word and strings it all together to make a statement. It gets close to meaning, but it doesn't really deal with meaning. Next, we have the left side is governed by rules. Oh my gosh, it loves rules. It gives people a feeling of things being predictable, of things being under control, of things being manageable. So ideas governed by rules. So the left side draws on pre-existing fixed codes and relies heavily on accumulated, organized information. Okay, so what we've always done, can we, veer off in some new direction? The left side has a problem with that. It's possible, but you really have to talk to that left side in order to do that. So draws on pre-existing fixed codes, fixed rules. What has your family always done, always believed? What has your culture always done, always stood for? That's what a lot of people rely on, and they never examine that. Is it still relevant? Okay. The left side remembers complex motor sequences. Oh my, this is what it excels at, and it is spectacular. Motor sequences, dancing, artistry of some sort, archery, all kinds of what I'll call creative, artistic things can be learned as a series of steps and just practice. However, if you do that without the feeling, which comes from the other side, then it's kind of dry. People will say, well, that was very nice, or that was really something. Well, when somebody puts emotion and passion into those complex motor sequences, then you have a form of excellence that is stunning. People would be mesmerized. The left side doesn't do that, but it does do complex motor sequences. And when you are learning to assemble a motor or bake a cake or design a sofa and build it, you need some pretty complex motor sequences. So it does a great job doing that kind of thing. Next, the left side talks and talks and talks and talks. It doesn't listen very well. So it's a talker. Okay, we'll leave it at that. And it is interested in how things work. How does that work rather than why? Why are we doing that? It just wants to know how, because how, when you get an answer to how, then you get the linear steps, the motor sequences that are necessary to create or recreate something. So that's the how, I've always called myself a how and why kid. I use both sides of the brain pretty much equally. And that is really where I would suggest is the direction to go in. You don't want to be all left-sided, and you don't want to dump that left side. It's too valuable. The right side has different characteristics. So balanced, integrated operation is what we're after. Okay. So the left side uses words primarily as signs or indicators. That woman is a female human being. That just points to the woman and gives you some facts or some data about her. It doesn't evoke much in terms of feeling or meaning. Okay? That woman is a female human being. So now let's look at the right side. Very, very different kind of operation. So here we have the right hemisphere, and it's a very different kind of operation. The right hemisphere is known as the design mind. So in contrast to the left hemisphere, the sign mind, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. This is the design mind, okay? And it's all about feeling. So the right hemisphere specializes in all at once processing. It's basically mute. Remember back when we were talking about how the brain is built, and I talked about Broca's area? So about this big, right about here. The right hemisphere doesn't have that. Language is in the left hemisphere. What is the right hemisphere good at? It's good at telepathy. So we don't use that here in this world yet. We will. We'll develop. But the brain has to develop a little bit more with us. So the right hemisphere is mute. It uses pictures, telepathically communicates pictures, and there's a lot more information in a picture. What is that saying? One picture is worth 1,000 words. That is true. So the right hemisphere has simultaneous kind of seeing. It sees the whole thing, a complex image. It doesn't focus on one detail. It looks at the whole thing, and then it kind of fills in, looks at the shape of the eyes or the shape of the mouth or the color of the hair or the sound of the individual, all at once. That's the right hemisphere. It sees and recalls a complex image. A lot of people will say, I remember your face. I just don't remember your name. Okay. That means that they are at that moment operating out of that right hemisphere. So the right hemisphere operation is looking at the whole face, and it loves analogies. Similar to, or this reminds me of, it sees resemblances, it recognizes patterns, it notices correspondences. Oh, that happened at the same time. I wonder if those are related. They don't think, I wonder if that caused this. They say, I wonder if that's related. So that's the right hemisphere. Analogies, resemblances, patterns, correspondences. The right hemisphere is a lumper. Okay. The left was a splitter. The right is a lumper. and it lumps all sorts of information together. And that is how it has these leaps to understanding some sort of complex system. All of a sudden, the whole thing comes together and they get it. They understand it. So the right hemisphere connects the world in related wholes, and connectedness is important. Then it focuses on quality. It's not about quantity. The left is all about quantity, but the right is all about quality. So it focuses on qualitative, unbounded, or unlimited aspects of the world. And those are pretty much feeling states. Okay? So the quality of something is the feeling you get from it. Okay? If you, let's say, you're talking about carpeting, you would think, what kind of feeling do you get from that? But if it's poor quality carpeting, you can run your hand over it. You can tell by the feeling. The same thing. That's what that is. Quality focuses on feeling and feeling states. So in that case of the carpet, you're not in a feeling state. You're actually touching something and feeling. What does that feel like? Does that feel like it's really well made, or is it cheap? Yeah. So that's quality. The right hemisphere charts emotional nuances of thought. Now, emotional nuances of thought are what's being communicated. What sort of feeling does that person create in you? Or what kind of emotional reaction does that situation bring up? Or does that possibility, cause you to be attracted to it, for instance? So that's the right hemisphere, is making note of emotional nuances of thought. Okay? And it often tries to match, or send, I guess would be the word, the emotional nuance with whatever is going to be said by the left hemisphere. Okay. That corpus callosum in the middle shares the information and the words. Cut that corpus callosum and block the left side, you're mute. You can't speak. You can put your hand in a paper bag and there could be a hairbrush in there, and you will know it's a hairbrush and you can feel the bristles, but you won't be able to say the word hairbrush. You won't be able to tell what it is. That's how mute the right hemisphere is. The right side produces images and visions. This is the side that our society has tried to train us away from. A lot of left brain people are the ones who make it to the top of big corporations. They have zero vision. And if they do have vision, they often use it to further the goals of the corporation. And what is the goal of any corporation? It's to make a profit. That's its rule. If you don't do that as a corporation, then the IRS is going to come along, or the authorities, and they're going to say, you're not really in business. You have to make a profit. You have, 3 years or 5 years to do that. And if you don't tell me you're in business and try to deduct all these expenses. So the right hemisphere, when you can combine that with the left hemisphere and get someone to rise to the top, then they will very often tweak the corporate goals so that they benefit both corporation and the people in the world. It's good for all. So doesn't always happen though. This side, right side, is governed by open-ended transformation. It likes ideas that are expansive, that bring about transformation. Why? Because that is what we are supposed to be doing. It's transforming ourselves, becoming evolving, and so on and so forth. So ideas governed by open-ended transformation and change are important to the right side. It draws on unbounded qualitative patterns that are not organized into sequences, but that cluster around feelings. And when you have somebody who thinks like that, they'll say, well, this is true, and that's true, and this is true, and this is true. And all those things may kind of contradict one another. The left side can't stand that. The left side wants proof, or they want a single answer, and they want it to be right. The right side looks at all of the answers and tries to find a balance in that set of answers. Okay? And they will go for a feeling that really kind of rises above any of the limitations that show up in all those conflicting answers, which I think is very good. The right, like I said, has very limited syntax. It is mute. It responds to images and stories or sentences that are recalled as a single unit, like the words of a song or a poem or a jingle. So when you have somebody who's not very left-brained and you're trying to teach them, the way to get to that, their brilliance and to bring out their genius is through stories, through images, through art, through movement, dance, song, all kinds of things. The right side is interested in what and why. Why? What and why? So it is receptive to words as design. In other words, when writers are writing, they're trying to convey some kind of information. That information will be taken in and remembered much better if it is both creative, has an unusual syntax, and evokes amazing feelings and insight. So the words are used to design a feeling. And the example here is wide, warm woman, white-thighed, wooed and wed, wife. That's a quote from Updike. Wide, warm woman, white-thighed, wooed and wed, wife. The left side would be content with wife. Okay. So there's the difference between the left and the right hemisphere. You can move back and forth between the two if you need to, but it's always best if you have a balance between the two and can recognize when you are operating out of your right hemisphere versus out of your left hemisphere. When somebody knows how to push your buttons, they're pushing buttons in that right hemisphere. And then what often happens is we switch to left hemisphere, or they switch to left hemisphere, and now they use words as kind of weaponry, facts and data. Never mind how you feel or what was going on in your life at that time. So we have a lot to learn about how to be good to one another and understanding how you're built and how your consciousness operates, how your equipment operates, and how it modifies consciousness and how consciousness modifies it. All that is critical. So thank you so much for watching the Two Hemispheres. Let's move on to the next lecture.